The Adventures of Mark Twain is pretty good fun. This is an animated feature film from 1985. It's directed by Will Vinton, written by Susan Shadburn, with a voice cast including James Whitmore, Michele, Mariana, Gary Krug, Chris Ritchie, and various others. And this is a stop-motion claymation film. I love claymation. And I'm not that fussed when it comes to different claymation styles, but I do know what I like, and thankfully the style here is very much what I like when it comes to claymation. It does look really good. The film does get a little dark. Twain wants to crash into Halley's Comet, and this is pretty significant because his birth and death actually aligned with the comet's path. And it's quite coincidental, actually. A friend recently was teaching me about this as I want to learn more about Mark Twain, and they're very knowledgeable about Twain. And then by coincidence, a few days later, I'm watching this film. So certainly I find that really fascinating at the moment. And characters from his stories are there to help him realise that maybe he has a different path. Maybe he doesn't want to crash into the comet. Maybe there are happier alternatives. So it was definitely a little darker than I expected. And it's certainly a very fun idea with all of these characters coming together. Some of the characters, for me, were very recognisable. Some of them I haven't met yet. I'm currently reading Mark Twain's work, in the process of reading Tom Sawyer at the moment. Some of the characters I'm not that familiar with, but it does give me an introduction to some of them. So when I do meet them in various novels, I will at the very least think of them as claymation. The claymation itself, as I said, is really nice. It's maybe a little rough in places, but in a really charming way. And in general, it makes it really visually engaging. The narrative itself is also really engaging. I did find that maybe it weakened as it went on. It was never boring. It was never dull, but I don't think it was completely consistent in quality. There were a couple of times when, just as it progressed, it maybe wasn't as interesting. But as I said, it never became dull. I still ultimately found it to be quite satisfying. It does feel like more of a children's film than a family film. Not a criticism, just an observation. But obviously, if you're not a huge fan of children's films and you do prefer ones that seem to be aimed at a wider audience, that is worth bearing in mind. You also don't need to be a Mark Twain fan to enjoy a lot of this, but I imagine that if you are a big Mark Twain fan, there will be aspects that perhaps mean more to you than they did to me, and I'm willing to admit that while I enjoyed it, I might have enjoyed it more were I a more knowledgeable Mark Twain fan. I'm a very new Mark Twain fan. I don't know if I can even say fan at this stage. I think I can, but very early days. But that being said, if you love Mark Twain and his stories and his characters, you're also going to have different expectations, so maybe you won't love it that much. I'd love to know what you think, regardless of your perspective, but certainly if you are a big Mark Twain fan, does it deliver? Do the characters feel like they're presented in a way that you expected? And of course, do you like the claymation approach? I'd love to know what you think of it. Personally, I had a lot of fun with it, generally found it to be a satisfying story with some great characters, lovely claymation, and ultimately it's a film that I definitely liked and I'm happy to recommend.